Welcome to Visit 09. I just need to locate this handy little device. Thank you. As Natalie said, I'll be focusing on consumer trends, and really the way that this has been positioned is delivering the customer experience. If we think about, well, any business really, but especially retailers, their whole purpose every day is to deliver an experience to customers that makes those customers buy a lot of goods, feel good about buying a lot of goods, and come back again to buy some more tomorrow. So delivering the customer experience is especially important. And from a technology point of view, we like to think about the role of technology in retail as supporting that retailer in delivering that experience. So the sorts of things that we'll focus on during the session today, the first is, well, what are the trends out there in terms of consumers and the way that they are shopping? And we'll highlight that consumers are actually becoming more and more demanding as a result, in large part, from what they're experiencing in the online environment and the emerging multimedia. And the result is that consumers are expecting retailers to become much more responsive, much quicker, much more real-time in the way that they provide their services, and those services need to be much more personalized and really put tools in the hands of the consumer. The final thing that we'll focus on is, so what is the implication for the retailer? And there are two things, really. The one is the in-store technology needs to be transformed into an interactive environment. And in order to do that, the second thing, you need a completely different IT architecture to sit behind this than the one that's in place in most retailers today. So let's explore this a little bit. Here's a typical consumer. And the big message from today's typical consumer is, give me the tools to shape my world. People don't want to be forced down a path. And the 5 things on the left-hand side there are the typical things that consumers used to ask for from their shopping experience. Thousands of years they've been asking for those things. Let me shop at my pace. Let shopping be easy. I want to feel I'm getting value for money. When things go wrong, I want support. And I want to know that I can trust your brand. That doesn't change. Those things stay there. But in the new world of multi-channel, there are a new set of 5 more things that are being added on top of that. Make it simple. I want an iPod experience when I shop. I want easy access. Don't put barriers in front of me. It needs to be convenient. I want to shop anywhere, anytime, when it suits me, not when it suits you, the retailer. As I said, give me the tools of personalization. And then, of course, in this multi-channel world, protect my identity, the security of my personal information is also there. Traditionally, we look at these consumers and we segment them into typical segments, 18 to 24-year-olds, and you can see all of the things that are typical of those specific segments. And those things don't change, they're still there. Here's Amy, she's 18 years old, she's a typical 18-year-old. Her boyfriend is the most important person in her life. She's interested in how she looks and fashion and beauty and all of those sorts of things, exactly as you would expect from this sort of segment. But 2 years ago, she signed up to Last.fm. And Last.fm interrogates her hard drive on her laptop. It checks all the music downloads that she's done. It creates a DNA of her music preference and goes out into the internet and gets all of the music items, artists that match that DNA, and it comes back to Amy and says, here's a playlist of things you'll like. That's business intelligence doing something that Amy could never have done on her own and adding incredible value to her life. That was 2 years ago. But if we look at where Amy is today, actually all of the things she does in her life are now enabled in similar sorts of ways. She's at college, and her college work, all of the research is done online. There's smart search engines, as we all know, all sorts of tools that she can tap into to help her in her studies, much more quickly and more easily than students of previous generations. When she needs a new passport, she applies online. She's part of an environmental group, and there's blogs and networks that are connecting online. She looks at the latest fashion that's coming out by browsing what's happening, not just in her own country, but around the world. She banks online. She happens to be into biking, which is quite unusual for a girl in this particular segment, but that's Amy. And she buys her gear on eBay. And she uses PayPal. And she's on Facebook and various other social networking sites and has an incredible network of people that span the globe. So her life today is very different from a typical 18 to 24-year-old, even 8, 9, 10 years ago. And the key thing here is that Amy's life is different because she has access to information and functionality that allows her to personalize her day-to-day life. None of this replaces the experiences that she wants to have. She still wants to really go biking. She still wants to really wear that fashion. But the access point to it is just so much easier because of information and functionality. And it's not just Amy. We can look at any segment. Here's Martin, he's 38 years old. His issue is that he's time poor. He's working long hours, and he wants to spend time with his family. So he's looking for tools that will help him to free up time and be more efficient. And you look at his life, and he's doing exactly the same thing. His holiday is planned online, his tax return is put in online, etc. Information and functionality at his fingertips allows him to shape his world. And so what's happening is that as each of these people, who do still fit into typical segments, begin to use these tools more and more across their whole life and personalize what they're doing, not just in shopping, but in other things as well, we're moving towards segments of one. Because each one of these people is creating their unique way of interacting with the world and with things they buy, things they experience. And that's a unique challenge for a retailer. How do you respond to segments of one? You might have 6 million segments suddenly, instead of the 5 that you had before. And the only way of responding is by putting tools in the hands of the consumer and saying, you do the work. You personalize your life. I'm not going to push a promotion at you. I'm going to create a database of promotions. And you can access them. You can say what your search criteria are. You can select. You can create your own promotion. The power is in your hands. And that way, each person can actually create a segment of one response. Now, the reason all of this is happening is because these are the tools that people have in their day-to-day life. And a very common comment that we get from consumers when they go into stores on the high street in any city in the world is, oh my goodness, retailers are 2 generations behind compared to what I experience at home in technology. And it's an increasing frustration. These consumers go online, and if they open a new web page and it does not open within 3 seconds, they move on. That same consumer is walking into your store, and they're looking for an item. If they look for 3 seconds and go, you're going to have a lot of lost sales. Now, people do spend, obviously, more than 3 seconds. But navigation tools, technologies, things that can help them to just more quickly, more easily satisfy and personalize their experience, even in the store, are driven by exactly these tools that they're experiencing online. And we're seeing this in all age groups, all channels, all sectors. The fastest growing Facebook user group is the over 60s. Okay? And you know it's an issue when you see a Facebook blog that has been established called Keep Our Parents Off Facebook. Okay? It's everywhere. And it's changing the business models that we see out there. Frustrated with banking and all of the constraints of the way banks deal with them, the firemen in America have got together and created a social network online that is a bank. They lend each other money in a transparent way. They charge each other interest. Somebody defaults on their loan, the whole group of firemen will pay back the person who's lent the money. And banks are looking at that and going, oh my God, they're replacing us. It's people themselves personalizing to their own needs. We see baby clubs emerging where parents are saying, well, actually, together, we can link using the smart tools of the internet and buy with the buying power directly from a manufacturer the way any retailer could. They're bypassing the retailer. And manufacturers of washing powder, for example, up on the right-hand side there, are saying, well, why wouldn't you, when you buy a washing machine, buy a supply agreement for your washing powder and just gets delivered every month? And you can just adjust your orders online. Bypasses the retailer again. There's a real threat in where the technology is going unless retailers respond and embrace some of these new and different ways of empowering the consumer. We've seen a trend. 10, 15 years ago, the power shifted from manufacturers to retailers. What we're going through today is a shift of power from retailers to consumers. And the retailers that will win are the ones that recognize that and adapt to that. And technology is at the heart of that adaptation process. The phone is becoming more important. Very, very rapidly, it is becoming the hardware that each consumer has that can do everything. I can pay on PayPal on my phone while standing in a store. I can do barcode scanning and understand all sorts of things about the product, etc. I mean, we all know the power that's emerged there. And if we look at the iPhone and we look at the apps store, there's 72,000 applications out there that you can choose from to make your life easier. So, give me the tools to shape my world. And those tools, whether they're in the store, online, or wherever they are, need to be simple, accessible, convenient, allow me to personalize my experience, and offer me security, while having all of those old priorities in the background, because I'm still shopping. And staff members want the same thing as well. They're also on all of these tools. So why would a staff member who's got amazing broadband at home and they're Googling things and they're chatting to their friends online while cooking the dinner and all this sort of thing come into a store and have to go through a 5-minute log-on process? Why would they feel good? You know, so your staff are experiencing and needing exactly the same things as consumers. And they will feel empowered if you give them the tools that make them effective and efficient in their job with many of the same tool sets. So, trends that we're seeing in retailers, in some part as a result of this. On the right-hand side, you can see all of those trends that I've just been talking about in consumer are being reflected in what retailers are doing. People are saying, let's give our consumers more access, more channels, multi-channel integration, more personalization. Let's enhance the shopping environment so that it's a more value-added experience. On this side, at the same time, people are saying, how do I drive down costs, create efficiencies through standardizing things, simplifying things? And we can see in the middle of that, self-service is a big trend. Time magazine highlighted self-service as one of the 10 things that will shape the next decade, the way that self-service evolves. It's very interesting. And IT trends map to that. On the right-hand side, we're seeing an explosion of self-service devices, whether it's the phone or kiosks or other things. Big focus on multi-channel integration and integrated architectures. And on the left-hand side here, we're seeing a lot of the equipment and the systems that you can see displayed in Visit today outside there, showing us how virtualization, industrialization, and immediate sense and respond kind of technologies can empower the retailer to be effective in this new and changing consumer environment. And in the middle there, service-oriented architectures, SOA, are a key part of enabling the organization to respond. And I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. And business intelligence is just zooming up the priority list. Because in order to understand what your consumers are doing in this very fast world and respond appropriately, not just as in the past with products and services and adverts and promotions, but with tools and things that they can do and use differently, you need to have a real-time view of what's going on. And so real-time business intelligence is one of the big trends, what people are putting in place. And when I talk to retailers, they always say, well, my priorities at the top there are the same as they've always been in some ways. How do I deliver my brand experience? How do I do effective category and loyalty management? How do I manage my supply chain effectively? Well, they are the same challenges, but in a very different world, because now it does need to be real-time. It does need to be responsive. It does need to take account of a much more complex consumer interaction environment, because it's not just in the store. Most people are in up to 8 channels simultaneously. So here's the challenge. How do I create a brand experience that feels and looks the same across 8 channels? Feels joined up. It's not that easy. And so, not a surprise, IT itself has become very high priority. And the 2 issues there are, how do I have integrated technologies with greater flexibility and lower cost than what I have today? How do I overcome my legacy IT? Because it's stopping me from delivering the customer experience. And by the way, on top of that, what are the innovative technologies that can actually deliver that experience effectively? And then, of course, in today's tough climate, what's the lowest cost I can do this at? Quite a tough challenge. So, what is the result? What we're seeing is an explosion of devices and technologies inside the store. I mentioned, you can now use PayPal in the store. You can use PayPal on mobile. We've been working with retailers who are enabling PayPal alongside their regular till system. We're seeing kiosks begin to mature. 10 years ago, people put kiosks in, and they were just little information points, and they died a horrible death because nobody really wanted to go and stand in a store and look at information. But now we have smart kiosks like this L'Oreal one here, which is a beauty advisor. So a woman might go in and say, well, what lipstick will suit my particular coloring? And she can use the smart technology to make that decision. She can scan that item, and it suggests other products that might go with that. So she ends up spending more. She's happier, the retailer's happier, and the manufacturer's happier. We're seeing an explosion of those sorts of things. It's on kiosk, It's on various kinds of devices, and it's on the mobile phone. And it's not, is it in the store or is it on these other channels? These channels are in the store. It's one blended environment. And that's quite complex to manage. And so what you're seeing, and I'm not going to try and talk you through that diagram, what you're seeing is underneath this, in order to make all of these things across the top there work well and work as part of one seamless whole, there's a whole different architecture, a whole different way of using IT that needs to be in place underneath. And we're seeing many retailers, especially the tier ones, rapidly going down this path. There are enormous programs completely replacing the way the architecture of the organization is structured and the way it works. It's a revolution in the way IT works, simply in order to meet that need in the front end. And this is quite a challenging area because it's technically quite complex. IT people understand it, but very often the people running the retail operations or the business end of the retailer are unaware that there's this dramatic change that needs to take place underneath. And they're focusing on, well, how can you give me a kiosk? How can you make these channels work together? And there's only a certain amount of workaround and sticky tape you can use to fit things together in the front end before you go, actually, we need this different architecture underneath. So, what are retailers doing? Retailers are having to rethink IT in the multi-channel front office and in the deeper infrastructure. So there are these dual things, these two things going on simultaneously. And so what is needed is a much more modern, open architecture, the point of sale even, which is the transaction engine inside the store traditionally, needs to become the transaction engine which can link to everything else. So it needs to have a much more flexible architecture. We need to have a growing portfolio of customer tools that are available for all of that personalization and customer empowerment. The overall architecture needs to be more open with very well-managed databases, because managing your data well in this kind of environment is absolutely critical. You do need a robust business intelligence platform, and you do need good loyalty suite for some of the traditional analytics and segmentation as well. That doesn't go away. But you also need a suite of good analytics tools that can really get deep into the operations and give you that real-time view of how you might respond. So, does that prompt any